Stephen, like I said, and we were playing around in there, even though we weren't supposed to. And we saw that big metal thing, and we thought it was a submarine. And we opened it up somehow, and you were inside.
Mel Gibson is revived after being frozen for more than 50 years in Forever Young, one of 5 big new holiday films, including the latest with Al Pacino and Shirley MacLaine that we're going to be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is Forever Young, and this is another one of those stories that goes through incredible narrative gymnastics to explain how love transcends the ravages of time. The film stars Mel Gibson as a test pilot in the late 1930s, who is, as the story begins, blissfully in love with Isabel Glasser. In a development which will prove to have great significance, they learn that a friend has successfully learned to freeze chickens and bring them back to life. Then Glasser is seriously injured in a traffic accident, and as she lingers in a coma near death, Gibson goes to his old pal, scientist George Wendt, and begs to be put in the deep freeze.
You said yourself that doctors can be wrong. That's true, you know.
If she gets better, wake me up.
Over 50 years later, a couple of kids discover the frozen Gibson, long after everybody else had forgotten all about the experiment.
Look at him. He's cold, too. You think he's dead?
Gibson makes friends with one of the boys and his mother, played by Jamie Lee Curtis.
So, Daniel, what do you do besides patrolling neighborhoods looking for signs of domestic problems?
I'm an Air Corps test pilot.
And a little later, he teaches her son how to fly an old bomber. Now, how much do you want to bet this skill will eventually come in very handy?
Set your flaps for takeoff. Not too much, just a quarter.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? Throttle pull on. All the way. Okay, now we're going. We're moving. We're moving. Okay, back pressure. More back pressure.
Freezing?
Yep. Okay, we're climbing. We're up.
Forever Young seems a little confused about whether it's a love story that leaps over the decades or an adventure story about 2 kids who find a frozen stiff who thaws out and becomes their pal. That's too bad, since the audience for one of these stories is not necessarily going to be the audience for the other one. And at the end of the film, if you think seriously about what has apparently happened, you'll wonder a few things like, for example, why is one extremely important question never asked? And is the happy ending really happy? Forever Young has a certain charm, and Mel Gibson is good in it, but it didn't work for me.
Oh, it didn't work for me at all. Maybe I even like it less than you because, first of all, I didn't find him all that charming. I thought he was photographed badly, kind of looked scrawny in the film. And the other thing is, I think there's the big flaw here is, why should we care if these lovers get together at the end when we haven't seen anything between them in the opening of the film to make us want to care? There's no scene there of real affection.
No, there's nothing really special about them.
Not at all.
He's got to sell us on the fact that this is the love of his life.
Yes.
There's another structural flaw, and that is the Jamie Lee Curtis character, because she and Mel Gibson kind of grow close to each other,
Right.
and then they have to make a big U-turn because, of course, at the end of the film, it's predestined that somehow he's got to be reunited with his great love from the past. So her character is rather inexplicable to account for.
You started laughing when you started to explain the premise of the show. I had the same reaction, which is, you know, my girlfriend's in a coma, so I can't take the pressure, freeze me for a year. That doesn't make any sense at all. It is a laughable film.
It is, and for example, when he wakes up, why doesn't he ever ask what happened to
that
her?
is
Or for that matter,
unbelievable.
why doesn't she ever ask what happened to him?
Astonishing that those questions aren't asked. Okay, next movie. In our next film, Louis Malle's Damage is, I think, one of the year's best pictures. A fascinating portrait of a self-destructive married man, an English politician, played by Jeremy Irons, who becomes involved with an exotic single woman, Juliette Binoche, who is dating his son. Their affair is like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Here's one of their first conversations after making love.
My brother killed himself over me. I had to decide. I made up my mind.
because I could have gone under. But I wasn't going to. Remember, damaged people are dangerous. You know they can survive.
His son doesn't realize what's going on, which makes the scene where he tells his family he wants to marry the woman more than awkward. It's frightening.
Congratulations. I'm sorry.
I was always sure you two had this in mind, so I'm just pleased I've hastened the announcement.
Well, you have. You have.
Let's drink a toast. Come on, children. To Martin and Anna.
The screenplay constantly raises the stakes on the cheating couple. Here, in a terrific scene, the girl's mother, played by the great Leslie Crone, lets Jeremy Irons know that she's aware of what's going on between him and her daughter.
I wanted you throughout the meal. You can't even look at her. You must get out of the way.
Damage has been in the news because it was originally rated NC-17 for adults only. With a few trims, it's been rated R for its sexual scenes that seem quite logical to me, as both participants are exorcising demons. Despite all the ratings controversy, Damage is not a film of cheap thrills. It's a serious study of how adults get themselves into the kind of wild situations you read about in newspapers and magazines. What I like about this story is that it is written smart, written with a topicality so that the characters seem credible, even though their actions are often strange. Louis Malle is a fine filmmaker who tackles tough subjects, incest and murmur of the heart, and now this. I think Damage is a real special film.
I think it's really special, too. This is one of the most compelling films I've ever seen about eroticism,
Yes.
and I want to talk about one scene. The Jeremy Irons character is at a cocktail reception of some sort. A woman walks into the room, walks over and introduces herself. She says, I am Anna, and I'm a friend of your son's.
Right.
And then the two of them look at each other.
Yes.
And there's not another word. And the look continues until the silence is frightening.
Mm-hmm.
And they're locked into each other's eyes. You realize it's what the French call the thunderbolt. They've been struck. And they are helpless in the hands of this erotic passion that they feel for each other. That scene where they're simply looking at each other and the silence grows and grows is one of the most erotic scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
In addition to that, I think that also Louis Malle lets the camera play, particularly on Juliette Binoche's face. We expect a great performance from Jeremy Irons, and it is wonderful.
Yes,
He's watching this
Yes.
guy just, deteriorate, but he lets the camera sit on her, and she is able to do magical things with her face, so that we're wondering what's she going through. What's her story, really?
Yeah, in a lot of erotic movies, for example, Basic Instinct, the people hardly even seem to be making love to each other. They seem to be going through some kind of an advanced aerobics class in bed.
Yes.
These people seem to be connected to each other and obsessed with each other in a way that is very palpably convincing.
It's a terrific film. When we come back, Robin Williams in Toys, a tale of war and peace in a toy factory.
You're as big a fool as your father ever was. You really think so? Thank you.
Lunch, anyone? I'm in the mood for smoked chicken. How about you?
That's Robin Williams, of course, wearing a smoking jacket there, and a scene from Toys, a new film by Barry Levinson, whose previous work like Bugsy and Rain Man is quite different from this whimsical fantasy. The movie is a visual delight, a triumph of art direction, as it creates a world seemingly occupied only by a gigantic and wonderful toy factory. But the gentleman who runs the factory dies and leaves it, not to his son, played by Robin Williams, or to his daughter, Joan Cusack, but to an uncle, an army general, played by Michael Gambon. He seems an unlikely choice to run a toy factory.
The deviled eggs look good, don't they?
Oh, that's a quick egg, isn't it? Oh, look at that egg scramble. Gets a little egg-sided. Talk about fresh. These are rude. Look at... these eggs are acting good. Maybe they really are deviled eggs. Look at that. They're possessed. Huevo de diablo. Save yourself. Get away from here.
The film is high-tech all the way, including a virtual reality helmet that makes you feel woozy.
Oh, what do you think about it?
Oh, I think it's a winner.
You really do?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you bet. I didn't know where I was, and then I was coming up through this thing, and then I thought I was going to fall off, and I felt seasick, and oh.
It's a prototype, but it's going to get better.
I think Daddy would be very proud of you.
Toys is an extraordinary film to look at. I wouldn't be surprised if it cleans up the Oscars for art and set decoration, but it seems a little confused about what it's all about. If the general is in favor of war toys, is that a good reason for programming peaceful toys so they can learn to fight? The film seems to be split down the middle between the delightful first half and a second half that doesn't deliver on the early promise. The battle between the toys just doesn't work, and despite the many genuinely good qualities of this film, I have to vote thumbs down, although it is a close call.
It isn't a close call for me, and I think maybe because it does look so good that, frankly, that the story and the intended humor of the film is so lacking, and that really, I got sort of angry at this movie. I really didn't like it, and I think it's because they didn't have a really good idea in the picture. What is the point of the film? You sit there and think...
See, that's what you're asking during the last hour.
Oh, my God.
What do we want to have happen? What do they want to have happen? Do we agree? Will it happen?
Is there an idea?
Who knows?
Is there an idea here beyond war is bad and toys are good? I mean, I don't think so. And boy, it's suffocating to sit through this. And also, Robin Williams is supposed to play this sweet, innocent, out of another world, and yet he does the same topical humor that we've seen him do in the Genie in the Bottle in Aladdin, the same patter. And I thought that was inappropriate. I thought that was sort of hedging the bet.
The case of a movie that's all dressed up with nowhere to go. Coming up next, Al Pacino is an angry blind man in Scent of a Woman.
Where's the booze? Flowing like mud around here. Get in here, you idiot. What do you want?
What do I want?
What do you want here?
I want a job.
A job.
That's Al Pacino as a blind and cynical, self-destructive retired soldier in Scent of a Woman, a special film that offers the treat of a writer and an actor at the top of their form. Al Pacino plays an unforgettable character created by screenwriter Bo Goldman, the character of a sightless, alcoholic Army officer who will be nursed by a prep school student during one long coming-of-age weekend for the kid in New York City. The student, Chris O'Donnell, is taken aback by the news he's making this trip. He thought he was just going to house-sit Pacino for the weekend, and Pacino is full of surprises and salty language.
Colonel, you bought me a ticket? I never said I'd go to New York.
Wow, what are you, some kind of chicken? Sticks to job description only?
Gate 46, sir.
As you were, Sarge.
Thank you, sir.
Which way's the door? Are you blind? Are you blind?
Of course not.
Then why do you keep grabbing my damn arm? I take your arm.
Once in New York, Pacino, in what seems like a headlong lost weekend of fantasies, offers to teach a stranger at the next table, Gabrielle Anwar, how to tango. As joyful as their adventures are together, there is an undercurrent of bitterness in Pacino's character that keeps bubbling up.
Are you like a rich miser or something?
No, I'm just your average blind man.
Your average blind man. How do you plan on paying for all this stuff?
Crisp, clean dollars. American. I saved up my disability check.
What's special about the story construction of Scent of a Woman is that there is a completely separate wraparound story to what you've just seen, and it surrounds the entire New York adventure. It turns out that the student is involved in a school honor system trial where if he doesn't rat on his friends who have committed a prank, he's going to be expelled. Now, these seem like two stories that wouldn't fit together at all, but they do in a rousing finale written by Bo Goldman, the author of Melvin and Howard, another great screenplay. This movie, Scent of a Woman, offers a series of surprises, including a great performance by Pacino, ranking with his best work ever. It's a special film.
I liked it very much, and you know, it took me a while to start liking it because when Pacino first comes on the screen, he is so abrasive that you're almost tempted to think that he's over the top until you realize there's a theatricality in this character. He is not only an irascible, cranky old drunk, but in his own mind, he's playing an irascible, cranky old drunk. And then eventually, as they go to New York and as he gets to know the kid, the character develops the most amazing dimensions, including that scene where he dances the tango. And we begin to realize what he thinks about women, what he thinks about life, what he thinks about courage. It's an amazing movie.
Well, I think that the performance has some justification in that he's a military guy, and he's used to teaching and being taught by rules, and a distancing between him and another man, frankly. And I think that that's the only way that this guy can teach. And he really, in this mission in his life, this perhaps last mission in his
training
life,
mission,
he is trying to teach this kid about life, and this is the way that he can do it. And yet, we see him break down, and we see the kid toughen up. It's a good film.
It is a good film. When we come back, Shirley MacLaine and Marcello Mastroianni in Used People, about a man who waits more than 23 years to ask the love of his life for a first date.
You are beautiful, beautiful.
Belle,
Our next movie is called Used People, and it stars Shirley MacLaine as a Queens housewife named Pearl, who has just buried her husband of more than 30 years when, amazingly, a stranger turns up in her life and asks her out. He's played by Marcello Mastroianni, and it turns out that many years ago, he played a crucial but secret role in her life. Now he wants to make public a love he has nurtured all of those years.
I want to ask you a question. Make me a happy man. Let me cook you dinner.
That's it? That's what was so important?
I'm Italian. We take cooking very seriously.
Pearl doesn't know what to make of this passionate man's declarations of love, and at Mastroianni's restaurant, their Jewish and Italian families also eye each other uneasily. The movie tells a lot of parallel stories, one of them involving MacLaine's two daughters, played by Marcia Gay Harden and Kathy Bates, who've been locked into a bitter rivalry for years.
Oh, I forgot. I'm not the one who starts in. I'm the one who sits there and takes it. That's right. Only you're allowed to start in. Only you're allowed to get whatever the hell you want your whole skinny, perfect life.
Excuse me, does the food magically jump from the plate into your mouth?
All right. We have drunk a little too much. Come on, Norma. Tell her, sister, you love her.
Excuse me, Joe, you're not my father yet.
Norma?
Used People has a lot of good qualities and a few big laughs, but it's too cute for its own good. The movie deliberately alternates between scenes that are sincere and scenes that are simply setups for obvious laughs, and that approach undermines both kinds of scenes for me. I didn't believe the story. I didn't feel much genuine romantic chemistry really existed between MacLaine and Mastroianni, and I thought it was all a little too neat how his long-suffering love is the catalyst to reform everybody else in the family. There are some very nice touches in this movie, but what we're left with are more touches than movie.
Oh, I agree, and frankly, I think that one of the reasons why you didn't feel a connection between Mastroianni and MacLaine is that they're constantly being interrupted by the miserable sisters and the whole family brood there, which are really miserable, unhappy characters, and I thought that was sort of dark and so miserable that I really didn't enjoy watching them. I didn't see any of the redeeming value that I found in, say, Moonstruck, the movie that this is obviously parallel with. And you're right, MacLaine and Mastroianni, they don't have enough scenes together of real romance and challenge. It's more, he's being cute, and then the unhappy sisters.
Yeah, it's the kind of movie where you can feel the screenplay rumbling along right underneath the surface. Coming up next, our laser pick of the month, a restored version of a Charlie Chaplin classic.
The Siskel and Ebert Laser Pick of the Month is brought to you by Pioneer Home Theater. You don't just watch it.
For our Laserdisc Pick of the Month, I'm recommending that you prepare for the upcoming film biography of Charlie Chaplin by taking a look at the Laserdisc of Chaplin's brilliant Modern Times from 1936. It's included on a new Laserdisc called Chaplin, A Legacy of Laughter. Everyone remembers Modern Times for one scene, the extraordinary moment when the tramp being overworked on the assembly line literally becomes a mesh in the corporate machinery. But there's a lot more to Modern Times than just one scene. In an effort to speed up the workers' productivity, the tramp is also force-fed lunch by a machine. This restored version of Modern Times is available only on Laserdisc, and the print is superb. This is the best way to enjoy Charlie Chaplin's artistry. It's called Chaplin, A Legacy of Laughter in Modern Times, is our Laserdisc Pick of the Month. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs down for Forever Young, the ridiculous Mel Gibson love story. 2 thumbs up, way up, for Louis Malle's Damage. An erotic case study of fixated lovers, Jeremy Irons and Juliette Binoche give superb performances. 2 thumbs down for Toys with Robin Williams, the good-looking but empty-headed fantasy about war and games. 2 thumbs up for Scent of a Woman, featuring Al Pacino's unforgettable performance as a blind military man on a training mission to help a young student grow up. And 2 thumbs down for Used People, a confused mix of miserable and joyful family life. So Damage is the one that we're strongly recommending.
Damage
It is R-rated.
and also Al Pacino, an early Oscar candidate for Sin of a Woman.
You bet.
That's it for this week. Next week we'll be back with reviews of the most talked about movies of the holiday season, including Hoffa, starring Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito in the story of the legendary labor leader, and Lorenzo's Oil, starring Nick Nolte and Susan Sarandon as a couple trying to save their dying son. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Here's a great Christmas gift for your VCR. It's the 1993 edition of Roger Ebert's Movie Home Companion. Full-length reviews, interviews, and more. It's America's favorite jelly bean, Jelly Belly, now appearing at theaters and video stores with good taste. Jelly Belly beans, try them, you'll love them. Exclamation fragrance from Cody, the fragrance that makes a statement without saying a word. Exclamation is the punctuation. Armatron Now, the best-priced quality watch in America, is also beautiful to look at. For men, for women, Armatron, the intelligent choice.